Do you want to jump into the cockpit of the most powerful combat robot and take a hurricane of walking around the neighborhood? Now nothing prevents you from doing it. The best robot games are just for you. Titanfall 2. The sequel to the successful sci-fi shooter, in which the elements of the first simulator played an important role. Unlike the original of 2014, a story company appeared in the game, and it was clearly not made for show, epic, interesting, full of bright events and twists, from which many players dropped their jaws, and shivers began to run down their spines. And if it weren't for the high competition, and 2016 turned out to be truly rich and loud and stunningly high-quality releases, in the year of its release, Titanfall 2 would simply drown in awards and titles, strewn with them from head to toe. To match the scenario in Titanfall 2 in the multiplayer mode, it was very good in the first part, but here it was only slightly modified, introduced several important changes that reduced the pace, but by no means the dynamics and intensity, and made the project more comfortable for novice players. The high quality of the second part is supported by the fact that even in our age of undivided domination of various PUBG, Overwatch and other Fortnite, the game still has its own rather large army of fans. MechWarrior Online. Incredibly popular in the 90s of the last century, a series of robot games that moved online. And today you can play it completely free of charge. Although MechWarrior Online was released in 2015, for many fans of Mech it is still the top project among all the games in this category available on the PC. One of the reasons is the preservation by the developers of all the features of the cult BattleTech universe, in which the events of the multiplayer simulator take place. In addition, the project has not stopped in its development, and today its plot and gameplay are actively changing and improving almost every day. The next advantage is a huge selection of combat vehicles, many of which are well recognizable from books, board games and previous parts of the series. After all, it was the stylish design of BattleTech mechs and the many modules provided for them that brought the popularity of the MechWarrior series. Finally, the battles themselves, which, unlike most other games, cannot be called arcade ones. This is a simulator of fighting robots in the full sense of the word. The battles are based on complex mechanics, borrowed from the tabletop series, taking into account dozens of, sometimes completely unobvious factors. Perpetuum. Sci-fi MMORPG, the gameplay and plot of which revolves around piloted robots, again available for modernization and customization on all fronts. Without this, in the mech simulator nowhere. And in this online game, robots are not only combat units, they have access to a number of completely peaceful occupations and professions, determined by the chosen class and the connected modules: mining, transportation, searching for artifacts, hunting, and so on. In Perpetuum, to start, the player can choose one of several factions, called corporations, which, by the way, also affect the activities available to the user, and the style of play in general. The world in Perpetuum is open, built on the principle of a sandbox, with a dynamically changing environment, varied, regularly updated missions, internal economy, hundreds of clans, crafting, PvP and systems. For such a variety, many people compare the project with the notorious EVE Online, although there is a bias in a completely different field of fantasy. The role-playing system is seriously different from the classic multiplayer RPGs. Gaining experience and developing skills here is carried out not by clearing the territory of mobs, and not even by successfully completing quests, but over time. And it doesn't matter if the user is online or not. Techwars Global Conflict is another multiplayer robot simulator that differs from the other games presented here in an isometric view. If the first part of Techwars Online combined elements of TBS and Hexa strategy, then the sequel is an action game in its purest form, where the player gains direct control of a robot of a certain class. In each of the 5 available classes, there are several models that differ from each other, and not only externally, plus it is possible to install different types of weapons for each robot, so there is a fairly decent choice here. Among the other advantages of the project, it is worth noting the official support of the Russian language, developed by the Russian studio Argus Games, the almost total destruction of the game environment, affecting the course of the battle and having important tactical significance, as well as the universe taken as the basis for the setting from the books of science fiction writer Mikhail Vlad. BattleTech. An addicting tactical strategy game with gorgeous graphics and challenging, but at the same time insanely interesting turn-based battles. The game is based on the BattleTech setting of the same name, one of the best fantasy universes featuring man combat robots. In BattleTech, the player takes control of not one, but at once a whole squad of mechs, and at the same time their pilots, MechWarriors. According to the plot, a detachment of mercenary MechWarrior enters a large-scale civil war in the distant 3025, unfolding between several military political factions. Detailed customization and modernization of combat mechs, development and improvement of pilots, complex tactical battles taking into account the features of the terrain, deep setting, modern graphical shell. Perhaps BattleTech really deserves to be considered one of the top games about combat robots. Robocraft. A free construction game in which the player first creates a controlled robot and then participates in it in online battles against other players. To do this, Robocraft has a convenient and detailed editor, in which collecting your own furs is an indescribable pleasure, comparable to playing Lego. But battles with live players, as well as races and battles against AI, several different modes are implemented in Robocraft at once, turned out to be no less interesting. There is also a clan system, the ability to form squads from friends, and a system for exchanging robot models through a special public robot factory. Iron Harvest. A very ambitious project in the real-time strategy genre with tactical features important for gameplay. The game will take place in the alternative universe 1920+, which is a mixture of historicism with diesel punk and huge walking combat robots. According to local chronology, during the First World War, instead of tanks, combat walkers were widely used and developed. After the end of the war, the geopolitical situation in the world also turned out to be very different from our reality. In particular, 3 new powers appeared: the Republic of Polonia, the Saxon Empire, and Rusvet, unleashing a fierce war among themselves. It is for one of these 3 factions, each with its own unique units and mechs, that you will play Iron Harvest. Other features of Iron Harvest include a cover system, a very realistic destruction system, an emphasis on combat, less construction, more battles, and a variety of missions: hold, capture, breakthrough, guard, stealth, etc. Project Nimbus. Fantastic action game, very close in spirit and style to the popular Japanese franchises Gundam, Evangelion, and Macross. This means an abundance of combat suits mechs with a very catchy and pretentious design, overly bright, dazzling special effects, and extremely dynamic battles, often exceeding the capabilities of human perception. Moreover, the battles in Project Nimbus, as a rule, unfold in airspace. In general, a game about furs focused on anime fans, since even the plot here is built on complex intricacies that reveal the inner world and feelings of the heroes, their uneasy relationship with each other. War Tech Fighters. An action game with furs, the plot, gameplay, and style of which are very much drawn from Japanese anime works and Hollywood Transformers. Players will find a large selection of giant man mechs and exciting air battles that unfold even in outer space. A free real-time strategy game dedicated to futuristic battles featuring a wide variety of fantastic vehicles, including huge combat walkers. AirMech Strike is focused on multiplayer, has nice modern graphics, and a large selection of military vehicles and units with skins and models that open as the game progresses. Override Mech City Brawl. A fighting game in which giant robots act as fighters, and modern megacities and other man-made playgrounds, along with miserable people living in them, are arenas. You can play against AI or against other players over the internet, including battles with the participation of 4 people at the same time. The game also has a unique co-control mode, when each user is responsible for one part of the robot. Override Mech City Brawl has bright futuristic graphics, energetic music of different styles, and a large selection of unique fighters and destructible arenas. MechWarrior 5: Mercenaries. A first-person action game set in the future. According to the plot, mankind has managed to colonize thousands of star systems. But not everything is so smooth. You have to fight for control over them. Conflicts in the future, according to the developers, are resolved with the help of giant combat robots called BattleTech. The role of the pilot of such a machine is assigned to the player. The MechWarrior series has been in production since 1989. This part invites players to explore different corners of the universe and participate in dynamic battles while sitting in a giant robot. Rich customization and modification tools are available so you can create unique mechs. Another feature of MechWarrior 5, Mercenaries, is the detailed destructibility of the environment. Get ready to raise entire cities where enemies are hiding. To be continued. If your favorite game is not included in this list, write it in the comments. Thanks for watching. Subscribe our channel, watch our other videos, press like, turn on notifications, and you will always be aware of what to play today.